Now we move on to Central Latin America. Argentina's President Javier Milei has scored a major political and market victory after his party won over 40% in Sunday's midterm elections, strengthening his mandate for sweeping economic reforms. Financial markets have reacted with enthusiasm. The Merval index surged more than 20%. Major stocks jumped over 30%, and bond yields dropped sharply, easing borrowing costs. The peso also strengthened against the dollar as investors' confidence surged. U.S. President Donald Trump has congratulated Milei on the big win, crediting his administration's support and his personal endorsement for helping secure the victory. Calling Milei a wonderful Trump-endorsed candidate, Trump has praised Argentina's leader for pursuing bold free market reforms backed by Washington. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Raymond Vickery. He's a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Raymond, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how did the U.S.'s involvement and endorsement in Argentina's domestic politics, does this reflect undue interference in another nation's democratic process, or is this okay from U.S. citizens' perspective, as U.S. government is still under shutdown?
Well, it seems to me that it is an example of the duality of the Trump approach to international affairs and international economic affairs. He has destroyed the U.S. Agency for International Development, which provided some funds to the poorest nations, people in need around the world. And yet he found $40 billion to give to his cohort that he is supporting in Argentina. In other words, you can use taxpayer dollars to support your friends, and quite frankly, the financiers, and many of whom are billionaires, who are very heavily invested in loans to Argentina. And so President Trump has bailed out Argentina while he's let the poorest of the poor off with no support from the United States at all. This is completely contrary to the way in which the United States has conducted itself in the past, but is very much a part of President Trump's view that he is entitled to interfere in elections around the world so long as those who are at stake support his approach to international affairs, and indeed to what we have in the United States as First Amendment rights, and that is a concern for the individual, freedoms of speech, freedoms of thought, and so forth. Those have been trampled to some extent in Argentina, and yet because he has, the Argentine Prime Minister has supported Trump, he's taken that approach. It didn't work in Brazil, where he supported Bolsonaro and made all kinds of threats against the government of Brazil. It at this point seems to be working in Argentina, but again, it will not work in the long run, because there has to be a strategy. There has to be some adherence to rule of law, to principles, as opposed to what is a transactional approach of President Trump. And that's it. What's in it for me on this particular transaction, rather than what is needed for a relationship which builds prosperity in the long run. So this is a seeming victory for President Trump, but there have been no policy changes in Argentina which will solve the basic kinds of problems in terms of the fiscal responsibility necessary to build prosperity in that country.
And Raymond, how might Argentina's sweeping economic reforms under this President Milei impact bilateral trade and investment opportunities with other countries, and what lessons can other economies draw from Argentina's market reaction to Milei's pro-market policies?
Well,
there seemed to have a technical problem with our guest, but thank you very much, Raymond, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news as a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Now we move on to Middle East. U.S.